Senators Shaheen, Admiral Richardson, Vice Admiral Moore, Rear Admiral Ishii, distinguished guests, Thresher families, friends, thank you all for coming. On behalf of my family and other Thresher families, I would like to thank Kevin, President of the ANC Thresher Memorial Foundation, for his dedication, sacrifices, and persistence in arriving to this special day. The placement of the Thresher Memorial in Arlington National Cemetery is a momentous achievement. Thank you, Kevin. My name is Tom Wiley. I am very humbled and privileged to stand here before you as a Thresher family member. My brother, Lieutenant J.G. John Joseph Wiley, graduated with distinction in 1961 from the United States Naval Academy and was on the Thresher. He was my older brother, my role model, and my hero. On April 10th, 1963, there was a national disaster. The United States Navy lost the lead ship of the world's most advanced class of nuclear-powered submarines, attack submarines, and its highly trained crew. Portsmouth Naval Shipyard lost highly skilled employees and friends. U.S. Naval Ordnance Laboratory, the Sperry Gyroscope, and the Raytheon Company also lost highly skilled employees and friends. The shipbuilding community was in shock. Former Thresher crew members lost fellow submariners and a boat on which they proudly served. The nation lost 129 men defending our country during the Cold War challenges with the Soviet Union. And 129 families lost loved ones. As Thresher families know, no family, no individual is ever prepared to process the shock of such tragic news like the Thresher disaster. No one is prepared to grieve or to properly comfort or console family members and friends. It was very difficult for the families. They had hoped and prayed their loved ones would be saved. But there were no bodies, no caskets, no real closure, just memorial services. In his book, Silent Strength, author D. Allen Kerr has a chapter titled One Disaster, 129 Stories. Indeed, each family has their own personal story on how they cope with their loss. Memories of our loved ones are all that remain for our Thresher families. Every Thresher family has their own story on how they learned of the Thresher disaster on that terrible day. These were the days before social media. There was no texting, no Facebook, no cell phones. Instead, people were told in person or called by relatives, neighbors, or friends, or they heard the news over the radio or TV. Siblings knew something was wrong when they saw their mom crying. It was not any different for my family. My brother John's wife, Patty, was in Connecticut looking for housing. She heard the terrible news from the famous anchorman Walter Cronkite on the television. My mom learned about my brother John from her own mother and brother as she was walking home from church with my brother's younger siblings. My dad, a locomotive engineer on the Pennsylvania Railroad, was working in the mountains of western Pennsylvania moving coal trains. He was told of the bad news and sent home. My older sister, was ironing clothes when she saw the bulletin on the television. Me, I was a freshman at Purdue University on the football team. I had received a transistor radio from my parents as a Christmas gift, December 1962. Took it back to college, and it worked for a few months. Then it quit. New batteries didn't fix the problem, so it sat on the window ledge, not working. On April 10th, I came into my dorm room, and the radio was working. I asked my roommate, also a freshman football player, how he got the radio to work. He said he just got the urge to turn it on. We sat there in the room, tossing a football back and forth, talking about how our first spring football practice in the Big Ten was going. Then the news about the Thresher came on. I ran down to the TV room to see it on the news. I ran back up to my room, and the radio was off. I asked my roommate why he turned it off. He said he didn't. He said it stopped working the moment I was out the door. The radio never worked again. The Thresher crew, along with the other Navy personnel on board, were members of an elite group of submariners. They were trained and had completed advanced training in nuclear power. It has been written that the Thresher was manned by the best and brightest of the Cold War generation. My brother John stated that he considered it an honor and privilege to serve as a member of the Thresher elite crew. They were young with promising futures. The civilians on board were the best of their profession. All 129 men were brilliant. They were described as men of genius and adventure. But more importantly, they were great Americans. They had backgrounds in a variety of interests. Many had been in scouting. They had been student athletes on a variety of winning teams. They were scholars. They were involved in student governments or student yearbook production. They were members of the high school or church choral groups. Several were World War II and Korean-era veterans. There was a linguist and a translator. They were all strong individuals. Thresher families lost husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, grandsons. Parents lost their oldest or their youngest son. Some lost their only son. One family lost two sons because their brothers wanted to serve together. Some mothers never recovered from the loss. Strong fathers wept openly. Older siblings helped their parents comfort the younger ones. Big brothers, baby brothers, best friends were lost. Heroes to their families. Children lost fathers. Wives lost husbands. The wives were overwhelmed with grief, trying hard to comprehend this tragedy. Somehow the wives, despite their own grief, found the faith, courage, and strength to carry on. Wives with children had to take on a new role as head of household. They had to comfort and explain the loss of a father. They helped their children to grieve and to heal. They were now responsible for raising the children to be strong, educated, and successful adults. Even though it was hard, they succeeded. The Thresher wives were heroes too. They were strong. They were the personification of the Thresher's motto of silent strength. Memories are all that we have of our loved ones. We will always remember them through mementos such as old photos, old letters, old cards, a news article, and most importantly, family stories. They are remembered for that contagious smile, that deep laughter, being a jokester, a deep thinker. They are remembered for raising tropical fish, cultivating roses. They are remembered as fishermen, hunters, boaters, musicians, known for playing the violin or the piano, doing woodwork, being members of church choral groups, or being an amateur radio operator. They are remembered for being active in their church and communities, for being in a 4-H club, being a stock car racer, a photographer, a golfer, a volunteer fireman, members of the Masons, the Knights of Columbus, a coach, a teacher. It has been said that the men of the USS Thresher stayed at their assigned stations while descending. They were an example of courage and commitment. To ensure the challenges that the Thresher encountered will not happen again, new and better protocols were established for a program now called SubSafe. The legacy of the Thresher, its crew, our loved ones. Although the lives of our loved ones were lost, they were not lost in vain. Memories. Now, Arlington National Cemetery has a new national memorial, and Thresher families have a new and lasting memory for our loved ones. President Kennedy said of our loved ones, quote, that the future of our country will always be sure when there are men such as these to give their lives to preserve it. A memorial in the nation's foremost sacred national cemetery will now recognize the legacy of the USS Thresher and its crew as they continue on eternal patrol. The memorial will honor and recognize the sacrifice made by our loved ones for our country. It will emphasize the point that freedom is not free, even in times of peace or armed conflict. The Arlington National Cemetery is respected and held in high esteem by our nation and the world. Arlington National Cemetery provides knowledge, history, and recognition of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Arlington National Cemetery is our nation's sacred and hallowed ground, where our nation honors its fallen heroes and never forgets. The loved ones of the Thresher families will never be forgotten. Thank you.